In 1781, 142 African slaves were murdered at the hands of the crew of the slave ship Zong, which was en route to Jamaica. Apparently, when the ship began to run out of water, the slavers threw some of the slaves overboard. Upon reaching land, they had to account for what they called losing the cargo to the insurance company. This event horrified much of British public opinion and in the long run would trigger the abolitionist movement, ultimately leading to the end of slavery in Great Britain in 1833. William Turner wanted to contribute to the movement with this painting, aiming to stir a few consciences, but beyond its denunciation, he also took the opportunity to create one of his great tempestuous landscapes. The full title of this work is Slavers Throwing Overboard the Dead and Dying, Typhoon Coming On. When we first encounter this painting, it appears truly beautiful. It features shades of orange and red, and we see that typical Turner sunset. But then, if we look toward the lower right corner, the terror of this painting begins to unfold. A foot, a hand, a shackle with chains. Suddenly, this is no longer just a seascape, or a sunset, or simply light on the water. It is something far darker. This painting is based on a poem, but we know that what it depicts happened in reality, not just once, but many times. As the storm approached, the captain of this ship made a terrifying decision. One by one, the slaves were thrown overboard. But the most important question remains: why? Why did the crew of the Zong make this decision? What reason led them to commit such an act of barbarity? Between the 16th century and the early 19th century, at least 12 million Africans were captured and taken to be sold as slaves in the colonies of the American continent, with approximately 1/3 transported on British ships. Among these ships was the Zong, which was originally a Dutch slave ship and, ironically, was named Zorg, meaning something like zeal or care. In September 1781, the Zong set sail from Accra, the present-day capital of Ghana, with 442 enslaved Africans on board, bound for Jamaica, one of the British Empire's most important and lucrative colonies, where they would be sold and forced to work on sugar plantations. At that time, the journey from Africa to the Americas could take anywhere from 6 weeks to several months, depending on weather conditions. It is estimated that between 15 and 16% of the captured Africans died en route due to the deplorable conditions aboard the ships. Additionally, diseases spread rapidly on these vessels, which were typically packed with as many captives as possible to maximize profit margins, cramming people into the ship's hold. When someone died, their body could remain chained to other living slaves for hours before being thrown overboard. However, in the case of the Zong, the captured Africans were thrown overboard while they were still alive. Unfavorable weather conditions and navigational errors resulted in a voyage that took months instead of weeks, and with each passing day, the ship's captain saw his profit margin shrinking as disease spread across the deck and ship's holds. So, on November 29th, 1781, he made the decision to throw the weakest captured Africans overboard to drown, some of them still in shackles. The slavers did not make this decision out of desperation or lack of resources, but for a much colder and more calculated reason. According to maritime insurance laws at the time, if slaves died on board due to illness or malnutrition, the insurance company would not cover the loss. However, if they were thrown overboard under emergency circumstances, the ship's owners could claim financial compensation. As macabre as this story may seem, it is entirely real. The Zong Massacre was not only an atrocious act, but also left an indelible mark on British history. Its impact was so profound that, decades later, it still resonated in the consciousness of many, including artists and intellectuals. One of them was William Turner, a British painter born in London in 1775, renowned for his innovation in landscape painting and his dramatic use of colour and light. But Turner did not paint landscapes merely for the pleasure of depicting nature. His work was often laden with meaning. Throughout his life, His thoughts were shaped by the events of his time, and his interest in politics and justice led him to engage with abolitionist campaigns that sought to eradicate slavery in the British Empire. In 1840, nearly 60 years after the Zong Massacre, Turner presented the slave ship at the Royal Academy of Art in London, the most prestigious art institution in the United Kingdom. The timing of this exhibition was no coincidence. That year, London hosted two major international anti-slavery conventions, the General Anti-Slavery Society and the Society for the Extinction of the Slave Trade and the Civilization of Africa. These gatherings brought together activists and abolitionist leaders from around the world, and Turner decided that his painting should be part of the debate. Turner's style had already sparked debates within the British art community. His technique, which prioritized color and atmosphere over precise details, puzzled many conservative critics. However, in The Slave Ship, it was not only his style that was controversial, but also his message. One of the first elements that catches the eye is the presence of an impending typhoon, a dramatic storm entering from the left side of the composition. Its vibrant colors extend into the clear sky, signaling catastrophe. However, we know that the Zong did not sink in a storm. Its slaves were murdered in calm waters. Turner altered historical reality to intensify the sense of chaos and despair, using the storm as a symbol of justice and divine retribution. But the true horror of the painting is not in the ship, it is in what floats in the foreground. In the lower right corner, a dark-skinned leg emerges from the water, with an iron shackle around the ankle. The body it belongs to is sinking, out of sight, as if the painting only allows us to see a fragment of the tragedy. Looking more closely, we can distinguish bare breasts, suggesting that the leg belongs to an enslaved woman, but her body is not alone. Around her, a chaotic swarm of gulls and scavenging fish circles the scene. One fish, its mouth wide open, seems to approach the leg, while red stains on its head suggest that it has already begun to feast on the bodies drifting in the sea. To the left of the composition, more human limbs emerge from the water, some still bound by rusty chains. Turner only shows us fragments of the bodies, leaving them to be slowly consumed by the sea. If the painting is observed without context, it is easy to be captivated by its vibrant palette and dynamic composition. But once we understand the story behind the image, each brushstroke becomes an open wound, each color a stain of blood, and each wave a drowned scream. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. I would love to read your thoughts on this artwork in the comments and find out if you are already familiar with it. If you enjoy historical paintings and learning more about art history, I invite you to check out the link in the description. There, you'll find over 500 historical artworks, and you can even purchase your favorite one to hang in your home. Shipping is completely free worldwide, and by purchasing, you'll be supporting the channel so I can continue creating videos like this. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you in the next video.